Hi everyone, Matt here and welcome back to Simply Strength. Today I thought I'd address another issue I'm rather passionate about, that of peer pressure. This phenomenon is pervasive and afflicts us in many different ways throughout our lives, and if we're not vigilant we can fall prey to it and give in to the demands of others. I have a fair bit of experience in dealing with this and some prominent examples stick in my mind. As you listen to this blog, try your best to think of the first time in your life that you were exposed to peer pressure. You'll be surprised at how far back you can go. When I was quite young, at primary school, between the ages of say 9 to 11 years old, I was a huge fan of dinosaurs of all things, and the pursuit of paleontology. I lived and breathed them. I read Jurassic Park: The Lost World, and looking back that was quite advanced for my age, and fairly gruesome at times. I loved the films, owned the toys, got the t-shirt, you get the picture. Moreover, I took my hobby a step further, and actually joined an organisation called the Dino Society. My mum paid for membership of this and I received a quarterly newsletter, magazine, amongst other things. It was great. However, I distinctly remember being the only person in my class at school that was interested in this stuff, and I got a fair bit of stick for it. For the record, I look back with a great deal of disdain on my experience at primary school. I hated the place, and having heard from a relative who still lives in the town, I'm glad to say the building was demolished recently and it's moved elsewhere. Nevertheless, I do remember with clarity the derision I received purely from having a passion that nobody else shared, from not conforming to the established norms, and for resisting what was deemed popular by the airheads in the class. I distinctly remember the phenomenon of Pogs and Pokemon cards during those early days, and the pressure I felt to fit in with their mundane bullshit. Things would change considerably further down the line, but those were the beginnings, for me, of peer pressure at school. Moving on a couple of years to high school, I drifted away from my interest in archaeology and paleontology. Don't get me wrong, I am still highly passionate about it even today, 20 years on, but I suspect that on a subconscious level, the crap I put up with had some sort of psychological effect. As we grow, especially in those early years of physical and mental development, our pursuits and passions are constantly in flux, and we can be very impressionable. I vaguely remember a burning enthusiasm for the written word, and in particular the short stories I used to write in about year 3. I think I was about 6 or 7 years old at the time. I used to write short stories for the head teacher, but this was very early in my time at school. I think she even mentioned it in an assembly one time, but like I said, this is all very vague. This burning passion no doubt may be a target for bullies, and given my upbringing, particularly by my father, I was not mentally equipped to deal with it, nor physically inclined to act. If only I had a time machine, but then I wouldn't have learned anything from it, would I? Hence, my memories of primary school are not filled with fondness. That being said, I've recently started creative writing again after all these years, and I'm truly finding my passion for it again. I'm putting together 3 novels in my spare time, and I think I've learned from those experiences. I remember also saying on a separate note to a friend in year 5 that I would like to be a scientist one day, and that actually did happen, funnily enough. There was a time when I was presenting to the rest of the class on insects. This was in year 5. And showing some photographs I'd taken of an ant's nest or something in the garden. And just the way I explained it was met with laughs and disdain by the other class members. It seems small to talk about it now. I mean, I was like 9 years old. But these events no doubt affect us. I was being worked on by peer pressure, the need to conform, to find acceptance from the social group. It truly is a powerful force, to be sure. These people attack anything that doesn't fit in with them, to stop anyone from excelling or rising above their level. Anytime a person shows a spark, an ember of individuality and passion, it is attacked, and I think that this comes from a position of envy, and that they don't have the hobbies, pursuits or love for a topic that you do. Also, I believe that the phenomenon of peer pressure is at work amongst the bullies themselves, in that people feel the need to attack the outsider purely to feel as though they belong to a social group. It can be very difficult to resist the temptation to give in, and I'm sure you all have your own experiences of this. At high school, particularly moving into year 10, the age of about 14 or 15 or so, I truly began to think for myself. I had been pressured, in a sense, to listen to the contemporary music of the time, the pop fodder. That being said, I was and still am a fan of some of Eminem's and Dr. Dre's work. I don't discriminate based on genre. But I happen to listen to some heavy metal from several different sources. but particularly Iron Maiden's 2 Minutes to Midnight totally changed my life. My musical tastes altered rapidly, almost overnight, and I went out and bought so many albums from a whole range of awesome metal bands, started learning the guitar, formed a band of my own, and became a radically different person, and these interests have extended to the present day. I didn't identify with a specific group, so metalheads or goths or what have you, as I don't believe in stereotyping people in that way. I was a rock or metal fan and that was it, and my interests in music have broadened since that time, but that's how it was. Initially though, this was met with derision, especially when I let my hair grow, and I was most certainly the odd one out until I found one or two others with comparable interests. My father, who I mentioned in the previous video, regularly moaned at me to get my hair cut. In my opinion, it was because I was going against the norm. I didn't care about what others thought, I just did my own thing and found solace or release in the music I was listening to. Nevertheless, it took a great deal of mental training on my part to reassure myself that I should forge my own path and not give a shit about what others thought. I didn't get much reinforcement from home at the time, and I just remember thinking, you're on your own, live your life by your terms, screw what everyone else thinks. I recall one time there was a guy who used to hang around in our social circle all through school, high school that is, and I would have called him a friend at the time, but in actuality he was a parasite, feeding off all of us to improve his self-esteem and ego. I noticed that he only ever bought the video games that we were talking about at the time, sometimes a game that I'd found out about, picked up and shared with the rest of the group. I made an off-the-cuff comment to another friend in the group, one of my closest friends at the time but now estranged, who went and told him this behind my back. Later that evening, when chatting on MSN Messenger, that's how old this story is, the guy comes at me with genuine hostility, saying he would make it hell for me at school, a supposed friend. How insecure this guy was, yet he acted all tough. Knowing what I know now, I would have called him out on his bullshit and stood up for myself. At the time though, I was much less confident, had lower self-esteem and all that, and just wanted to avoid hassle. It's funny though when you call out the people that regularly give in to peer pressure. Sometimes the more unhinged ones can lash out. The need to belong is rooted in all of us, as we are social animals, yet it's entirely possible and necessary to break free from peer pressure and forge your own path. Indeed, there is always pressure to act a certain way, dress in particular clothing. This is just a fact of life at school in the UK, wearing a uniform to take all of your individuality away. Although there would still be pressure if you could wear what you want, for example, brand names, social background, people that just simply have less or more. You're pressured to listen to particular music, behave in a certain way towards women and girls, go out to certain clubs, bars, etc. With reference to school, all of the hottest girls, and there weren't many at my school, are now either ugly or are married and have got kids with guys who look as though they've had a physical altercation with Mike Tyson. The guys that were, quote, the hardest, or the alphas at that time, are now shadows of their former selves. They've usually got children, pretty much tied down for the rest of their life. In fact, I can't think of more than a couple of people from my school year that have actually gone on to do anything remotely remarkable with their lives. These people are so blinkered to the fact that the most unusual, far-out, left-field individuals are often those that have added the most to human society and existence, and instead of helping to nurture that, they maliciously try to destroy it and stamp it out. That same pressure that we feel at school often extends to adulthood, and you must be very vigilant to resist it, requiring a lot of awareness and training. There will always be some beta simp that questions why you're still single, why you haven't got a mortgage, why you don't want to get married, why you don't go on holiday to the in places. I was having this discussion the other day about the British fascination with places like Ibiza and Magaluf, places I've never been to and probably never will. Why would I want to go abroad only to be surrounded by other British people, some of the worst British people in fact, when there is a huge wide world out there just waiting to be discovered? I've mentioned this before, and every single time I would get funny looks, especially if it was a discussion at my first place of work. Presently, I know that very soon I'll be able to start addressing my bucket list of places I want to explore, including, but not limited to, the United States, Canada, Australia, Germany, Norway, South Africa, and many, many more. The desire and drive to accomplish something, whether significant or mundane, must emanate from within and be intrinsic in nature. I've always admired people that navigate their own ship, chart their own voyage, so to speak. Ironically, these are often the same people that are attacked and vilified by those around them. This has particular relevance to MGTOW. What? You mean you don't ever want kids? You never want to get married? You'll be miserable all your life. You got a girlfriend yet, mate? What are you doing? Are you like gay or something? Don't you feel as though you're missing out? You're always the single one when we hang out. I'm going to finish up by talking about an experiment conducted by high school teacher Ron Jones at Cubberley High School in Palo Alto, California, in April 1967. It links in well with the aspects of peer pressure I've been discussing, particularly the need to belong. Mr. Jones wanted to demonstrate to his students how the German population could have so easily followed Adolf Hitler through a need for social belonging. He created a movement called the Third Wave, telling the students that the movement intended to destroy democracy. He even created a motto for the movement: strength through discipline, strength through community, strength through action, strength through pride. Over the course of one school week, Mr. Jones carried out his experiment. On the first day, he implemented a regimented, authoritarian regime characterized by strict classroom discipline and a distinct set of rules, including having to preface every remark with Mr. Jones, despite addressing him very informally prior to this, usually as Ron. On the second day, Jones devised a salute evocative of the Nazi version and ordered students to greet each other in this fashion even outside the class. And all the students complied. By day 3, the experiment has started to expand beyond its intended scope. Even students from outside the class have started engaging in the salutes and attending his class. Mr. Jones instructed his students on how to initiate new members, and by the end of the day, the movement numbered over 200 participants. Jones was met with surprise when some students would report to him when other members of the movement failed to abide by their rules. By day 4, the Thursday, Jones decided to terminate the movement because it was spiralling out of control. Student engagement was excellent and performance was outstanding. He told the students that the movement was part of a wider national movement, and that the following day, a presidential candidate of the Third Wave would be visiting for a rally at noon. On the final day, instead of an address, the students were presented with a television screening an empty channel. After a few minutes, Ron announced that they had been part of an experiment in fascism, and that they all opted in to create a sense of superiority as had occurred in Nazi Germany. He then played them a film about the Nazi regime to conclude the experiment. Although not widely publicised at the time, the experiment has garnered considerable interest over the years. I've included a link below to a documentary about the Third Wave experiment that I'm sure you'll find interesting and thought-provoking. It's well worth a watch. As you can see, it's extremely difficult to be an outsider, to resist peer pressure and be independent. But by adopting a MGTOW lifestyle, you're already well on your path to accomplishing this. However, many of you have also no doubt been privy to the vitriolic criticism that certain segments of the community have flung at men going their own way. And given what I've just been speaking about, it's easy to understand why this is the case, especially with regards to other men that are still plugged into the matrix. One of my favourite sayings uttered by many MGTOW is, "It's better to walk alone than with a crowd going in the wrong direction." This applies not just from a MGTOW perspective, but life in general. Do things your way, never give in to peer pressure, shaming, and the like. Ultimately, think for yourself and form your own opinions and worldview. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'm keen to hear your own experiences of peer pressure and the ways that you have addressed it down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, take care.